Hi, folks. Steve Urban here. Today's episode of the Riderflex podcast is sponsored by Marketing 360. My good friend JB Kellogg and his team do such a fantastic job for us and so many other companies. Marketing 360 is the number one platform for small business, and it's everything you need to grow your business. If you need marketing support, I really encourage you to contact them at marketing360.com/Riderflex, and we'll add that link to the description of this episode for easy reference. And on today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, we have guest Joe Wilson, the owner and president at Volare Systems. His company builds high-quality web and mobile apps and delivers custom software development. For any developer or software engineer looking to start their own company, I think you'll find this episode very enlightening with lots of advice and insights into entrepreneurship. Happy to have Joe Wilson on the Riderflex podcast today. Joe, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks.
So you're in Highlands Ranch, Colorado?
Exactly, yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. We're always interested in talking to folks like yourself that, worked for bigger companies, or, they were just regular employees, and then they had the guts to step out and start their own business, which is always a scary thing.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you jumping on and sharing your story. But before we get into all that, why don't you tell us, give us some personal stuff. Tell the listeners about Joe Wilson, some family stuff, maybe where he grew up, those kinds of things.
Sure. Yeah. I'm from Texas. I was born there and lived there until about 10 and a half years ago. And we moved to Colorado.
What part, by the way?
Several. So I was born in Houston, lived there through second grade. And then third grade through high school, I was in West Texas in San Angelo.
Oh, okay.
And then
okay.
From college on, I was in the Austin area. So east, west, and central. But I spent most of the time, we lived in Austin for, I guess it was in the Austin area, about 20 years.
After you got out of college. So you went to college in Southern, in Georgetown, right?
Southwestern.
Oh, you went to Southwestern, which is where is that San Angelo? What is that?
Southwestern is in Georgetown, Texas. It's a tiny liberal arts college.
Okay.
That's where I met my wife.
Gotcha.
My daughter, who is 19, is going to school there too.
Oh, okay.
I've got a sister-in-law who went there. So it's just a little liberal arts school just north of Austin.
Well, north of Austin used to be not very many people, but that was 25 years ago. Now it's pretty crowded.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, so in Georgetown, a lot of the restaurants, like everything would shut down at 7 or 8 o'clock. And when you're in college, I have college age kids, so I recognize this from my own history. They kind of start coming into it about 10 p.m. They're like waking up, like, all right, what's on the agenda? And you're like, I'm shutting it down, and they're just getting started.
Right.
But we were always like, where can we go get something to eat? And the best we could do in the early 90s was in Round Rock. There was a Whataburger.
Right.
It was up until midnight. Other than that, you had to drive into Austin.
I remember the Whataburgers, right? Because Whataburger is San Antonio, I think.
I think I think they just got bought.
Oh, they did.
There was a little freak out in Texas among our family members. They were like, oh my God, what do we do? Whataburger's been purchased.
Who purchased them?
I don't remember. But, like most purchases, they initially said, like, we're not going to change anything. We're just, Whataburger is such a success. We just want to be part of that. And,
Okay.
Who knows what will happen?
But you graduated high school in San Angelo, is that right?
Yep.
So I have a story. So first of all, I used to live in Austin. I was based in Austin, and I had that whole area, and I also had West Texas all the way out to New Mexico. So this was in the early 90s, and I used to take back roads from Austin to San Angelo instead of some of the main highways, because there's a bunch of these little farm roads that would just run straight out west and not very many people on them. And man, I could just drive as fast as I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I reflect back about that sometimes now and think to myself, man, I could have killed myself. I don't know what that was crazy the way I used to drive those. Of course, now, if it was dusk or it was early morning, you couldn't do that because the deer were everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, where they were everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyways,
That's their time.
so let's do this. Let's talk about your career now. Walk us into your career after college, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I graduated in December '91, and it was kind of a weird time to graduate because it's in the winter instead of the spring, so there was no ceremony. It was just one of those, like, you take your last final and you sort of walk away. Like, there's no big event.
And 91 wasn't the best economy, was it? I'm trying to remember.
That's the thing. There was a recession, so I went to Austin, got an apartment, and I was applying for grad school, and I was like, I need to be applying for jobs because you just never know, but I absolutely have to be able to pay rent. Mm-hmm. Let's get some income coming in.
Mm-hmm. Were you married at the time?
No, my girlfriend, now wife, was a year younger, so she was still in college. So okay. I wanted to be as far north Austin, close to Georgetown, as I could be.
Okay.
So I'm waiting. I've sent off my applications to grad school, sending off applications to jobs, applying to jobs. I've had to tell my kids about this because it feels like the Stone Ages, right?
Right.
And I was like, you go look at the newspaper.
That's
and
right.
Read in a piece on print and circle the ones you like.
That's right.
Make a phone call, or you go to a big company, go to their maybe break room or whatever, or HR, and there's a bulletin board with stuff tacked up, and you'd go, well, okay, I want to apply for this one. And you walk into HR, and you tell them, and they'd say, here's an application. And you write your address for the last 10 years. It just stuff that you're like, why was this ever important?
I remember mailing resumes and then every afternoon going to the mailbox to see if I got a reply letter. I mean, that's how old I am.
Right. Waiting for mail and for phone calls, which
yes.
It just seems so strange to set up just an email.
And telling family members that were in the house, like, hey, please be careful how you answer the home phone, because this could be somebody important.
This could be my big break. So I just graduated. I did well in school. I was applying to grad school, and I was kind of proud, I guess. And so applying for these jobs, I was like, well, let's go for like the office-y, white-collar jobs.
Okay.
And nobody gave a damn. Nobody was responding. Everybody, and we had that conundrum of like, well, do you have any experience? Like, no, but if you need me to read a book and write a report on it, man, I'm your guy. Like, that's not the job at all. I don't need any help with research on any of that.
That's good.
But so I started calling up temp agencies and getting set up with them. Okay. And like I said, at first I was kind of like, I was turning down manual labor stuff.
Yep.
And then like after about a week, and it felt really bleak. I was like, what kind of manual labor have you got? Let's see what we can do.
Well, you're running out of money. You got to eat. You got to eat.
Exactly. So I did a lot of weird stuff. I didn't know it, but there's a job called paper shredding. At least there was in the early 90s. So this was the weirdest one. So this is in the Bank of America building in downtown Austin. And what they would do is they had these giant mainframe whatever things. And so when they had to print out look up an account number and the balance, they apparently had to print all of them. I don't understand why.
Oh, wow.
Even then. So we walk around with these gigantic trash cans a couple times a day and pick up these enormous amounts of that green and white barred paper and go shred it.
And you're thinking to yourself, this is what I went to college for.
Yeah, well, I knew like someday my ship will come in, right? But it was slow going. Anyway, finally I got a call about a job I had applied for. The thing that was my entry was at the state of Texas. They would say, you have to have at least this much experience or equivalent education. So I was like, there you go. I've got the second part.
Okay.
So they finally called me in for a job as a statistician, which it really wasn't a statistician. It was like a data analyst. I interviewed for that, got that job, and the job was really writing code,
Oh, okay. So that's all right.
writing reports,
Got it. Got it.
and
Okay.
um,
Could you write
helping
code?
do
But
analysis.
could you write code before that?
Yeah. So my personal side of it, I guess, was that I was probably like 11 or 12 years old, and we got an Apple II Plus for Christmas from
Oh,
some grandparents.
okay.
And everybody in the family was like, so what does it do? And it was like, it doesn't really do much. You have to buy the games or whatever.
Yeah.
I got into it, and at the time, you would get subscribed to these magazines that would have code printed on the page.
Wow.
You go type in the code and hit run and see if you typed anything wrong. And, then you get like whatever, a thing that just runs a little color across the screen, or I don't know what.
Yep.
It was always just kind
I
of like,
remember. No, I remember. Yep.
so it wasn't much, but I just thought that was so cool. So I just really got into that and
Oh, okay.
learned
Okay.
AppleSoft Basic. And in high school, we had to have a like computer literacy class. I already knew all the stuff in that, so I helped all the other classmates. But then when I got to college, you would think the progression would be, so you're going to major in computer science.
Oh, well, I was surprised that wasn't your degree when I was doing my homework on you, because obviously I saw Volare and I'm like, okay, well, custom software development. And then I looked at your
Sure.
education. I'm like, wow, how'd that happen? So I appreciate you. Yeah.
So Southwestern is a tiny school. So I had one, like, before you could take the advanced stuff, you had to take the intro. So I sit in like introduction to programming or something. And it's 8 a.m. and I'm a college student and I cannot stay awake. And the guy teaching it, it's rude, but he was not a young man. He was not an entertaining man.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get through the class.
Gotcha.
I did fine. I just showed up for the test and passed the test. And it's such a small school. There were 2 people in that department, and he was one of them. So half my classes would have to be with this guy that was really pretty dull. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have to find another major. I can't do that.
I see.
So I ended up in psychology because it just ended up being more interesting to me. I really like the studies and the research side.
I've interviewed thousands of people, right? I mean, just even when I was an executive, even before I started Riderflex, I can't remember talking to somebody with a psych degree that ended up owning a software development company and being
okay.
Like that might be a first for me. I don't know. That's cool though.
Well, so to complete my degree, I had to do the I was, like I said, I was interested in the research and the experimental stuff, but you had to do the counseling side too, or take at least a couple classes.
Okay.
And I was so bad at that. I remember my professor. So we had to had a tape recorder, and I did this with my roommates, well, how did that make you feel, and that sort of thing. And I played my recording for him, and he looked at me, and he was a really nice guy, but he didn't have anything kind to say. He was like, this maybe isn't for you. And I was like, I don't really want to do it. And he's like, yeah, well, I think let's just get through this then,
wow.
Finish the class. And anyway, so I didn't have any knack, I guess.
But so then when you got this job, that first job you're talking about as a statistician or analyst or whatever it was,
yeah.
you walk us into how you started. Yeah, kind of go from there. Walk us into how
I did that, and it was doing software development primarily on mainframes and doing a lot of big data analysis stuff.
All right.
Usually for the state legislature or for policymakers in Texas around education.
I see.
And the internet came out, and what was it? Mosaic and Netscape really, I guess, was the popularizer of the browsers. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is going to be big. This is going to be a big deal.
Okay.
And I wanted to go work on that. And at the state, they were like, just no demand for a website. Maybe we'll do a little one pager with our phone numbers and stuff, but there wasn't any web development work to do there.
Okay.
So I went to work at GE Capital Consulting to do, I guess, more modern, get away from the dumb terminals and the green screens, and do Windows and web software development with them.
Okay.
And then, let's see, about a year later, I went to work for a small company in Austin, Cobb Information Systems.
Uh-huh.
Now,
right in there, if I can just pause you.
Yeah.
When you took the job for Cobb Information Systems, was there any entrepreneurial bug inside you at all at that point? Were you like,
no,
wait, okay.
No, at that point, I just had that employee thing, because so the GE Capital is a big company and they're solvent and they're not going to go away.
Yeah.
And I went to work for this mom and pop software development company in Austin.
They had like 15, 10, 12 people or something.
Yeah, I think it was less than 10.
Okay.
And I just thought, like, it'll probably work out.
That's so funny. You went from like GE to like a company of 10 people.
Yeah.
Or that you talk about
I liked them, and they had projects that I wanted to work on, and it was kind of like the other thing about the GE thing, honestly, was that there were a few things that kind of soured toward the end on it. That they had me placed with one of their clients, and I got this real eye-opening experience. That's how a lot of placement stuff goes, which was that I was out there on site.
Mm-hmm.
We were done. The project was done. I told the manager we're done. Let's have a little, cake in the break room and then call it. We're done.
I already know where this is going. I know where this is going. Go ahead.
Right. And the thing that was weird was the GE people were like, listen, you're on a contract. You just show up.
Yeah.
And hang out.
Yeah.
And sit tight. We'll find something, but just sit tight. You're billable. I go to the department manager, and he said, and I went to him a couple of times, and I was like, this is a waste of your money.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he looked at me and he was like, you don't quite understand how this works. It's not my money. It's our, this giant global company that we work for. And I don't care. If you go home or go to another project, there's no more money coming back in my budget. I don't get any kind of a bonus from it. He's like, he's not motivated. And I'm like, I'm looking around like, what is going on? So, maybe there was a little bit of entrepreneurial thing kind of starting up. But what I did was, I was like, I can't just come. All my friends, I was in my 20s, or all my friends were like, it's the perfect job. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. But how do you look at yourself in the mirror every day, right? I mean, it's like morally, it's like, I don't know if I can do this. Like,
it was actually more stressful, I think, because I had to look busy and I literally had nothing to do. Mm-hmm. So I would just time my coffee breaks and try to go to the longest coffee pot distance I could.
I couldn't. I totally. There's no way I could live like that. I mean, I'm an Oklahoma boy, by the way. You're a Texas boy. You're a Texas boy. Like, I was raised. I mean, if my dad found out I was doing that, milking some system like back then, he would have kicked my ass even if I was in my 20s.
I mostly just couldn't stand the boredom, honestly, and if my job is to look busy, like, I was like, come on.
Yeah.
So I just started going cube to cube and saying, do you have anything you need help with?
Okay.
And then I started elbowing my way into meetings that I wasn't invited to. And I was like, what are y'all talking about?
Good for you.
What's going on here? Does anybody need any software development or anything to automate or whatever? And, like I said, so I found some stuff and helped some people with, like, well, I guess I could use some Excel macros and, things like that. That were kind of small things.
Okay.
Just stuff to kind of pass the time. But eventually they were all kind of like, you did all the stuff I need. So that's why I was looking for another job, is I was ready to move on and found the Cobb Information Systems one.
And now, when all right, so you worked at Cobb for a long time. Walk us into what happened with Cobb that caused you to, open up your own business. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I was there 11 years. I liked it. And I got to see exactly how a consulting company like that works. It was a little different model from the GE one, um, but similar in some regards, that they
Okay.
just develop software for end clients.
Okay.
So I was there for a long time, and we were in Texas for a long time, all my life up to that point, and we wanted to move to Colorado. For it's nice here. The weather's great.
Well, yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty.
yeah.
Um, my now oldest child was in second grade, and we were trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do about schools? We've got more kids coming. Is this really the right school? Do we need to move in Austin, or do we just need to
Mm.
um, reboot and go
And
to Colorado?
you had been to Colorado a few times. You knew it was awesome. I mean, you guys had.
Yeah, everybody always says you must be a skier, and I'm not a skier. We'd always come in the summer
Yeah,
because it's so hot in Texas,
yeah.
and I was like, this place is fantastic.
Oh,
It's not 100 degrees all the time.
the summers in Colorado are just absolutely phenomenal. For any of the
Yeah.
listeners on this episode that haven't been to Colorado in the summer, yeah, I'm just like you. I could really care less about the skiing piece. I'm all about
Uh-huh.
going. I'm all about going to the mountains in the summertime. Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you were targeting Colorado. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. And so we did kind of a reconnaissance mission, I guess. That we came. My wife and I had the grandparents watch the kids. We came here one weekend. I had looked online at job ads to see, like, do they hire software developers that do what I do in Colorado? I can start my own business, but if it goes to
Yeah.
south,
Yeah.
can I just get a straight up job?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, there's plenty of work. It's maybe not as much as Austin, but there's plenty.
Well,
So
this is in '09 too, which isn't the
correct.
best time.
Yeah, once again, yeah, another terrific timing thing, I guess. So we move here and start up the company, and the first, whatever, maybe 6 months or so to a year, the clients are not premier clients, I guess, but we found enough work and all that to make it work.
Okay, let me just pause you right there because this is where the listeners, I think, really get interested. So,
Sure.
I don't know how much personal detail you want to share, but so you quit your job. There's no severance or anything. You quit your job. You paid for your own relocation to
Yep.
Colorado. No job set up. When you were moving to Colorado, when you were in the middle of your relo, did you when you started Volare, did you have a client, or were you like, oh, once we get moved, I'll find clients then, or like how long did it take to set up the first couple of contracts to actually get cash coming in, and was that a long gap, and was that scary? Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So I need to back up because, like, that is a good question about, like, well, who's paying the mortgage and the rent?
Yeah, yeah.
So we did have some savings, but the bulk of the money came from my wife's company, Zolaware,
Okay.
that we had started, I think, in 2000. I can't remember for sure, but it was a baby carrier company. So the way that started off, we had a baby, and all the carriers at the time they had like teddy bears or something like that on them, and my wife was like, what, I'm carrying a baby, but I'm an adult. I'd rather not have teddy bears on my outfit. Can I
Okay.
get something more stylish? So she made her own baby sling,
Ah.
and everywhere she went, people said, that is so cool, where'd you get that? And she finally was like, maybe I should sell these.
Okay.
So, and I freaked out. I was like, baby carriers, like, can you imagine the liability we're
Oh,
facing?
hadn't thought about that till you just said it, but okay.
I was like, and I said, if we're going to do this, we got to do like a full, like, not just sell a couple and see how it goes. We got to get incorporated and, all the stuff. So we went through. So at Cobb, I did all the operational stuff. the hiring and firing, and a lot of the project management.
Okay.
What I didn't do as much of was sales.
Okay.
And then with Zolaware, we went through all the how to start a business, right? How to file with the Secretary of State, how to get insurance. So we had gone through that hurdle. So
Your
I
wife,
was like,
did your wife have any entrepreneurial experience before that?
no, I don't
No.
think so.
Okay.
No.
All right. All right. So you guys.
And you know, I grew up. My dad was a law partner at a law firm, so I was
Okay.
kind of used to like small companies, and they sit around and make decisions and things like that. But we didn't get into a lot of specifics on the mechanics of
Okay.
how do you start a company and what does it look like and what are the
Right.
first steps. So we kind of knew that mechanics piece from having done Zolaware about getting insurance and just all the things
Okay.
that are
Okay.
overhead kind of admin things. And I knew the operational side from my other consulting experience. So I wasn't too worried about
I see.
spinning up a company and getting it going and being able to meet customers' needs.
So I'm just curious how this conversation went, if I can ask. So
Yeah,
you're in Texas. Your wife has her business going, and it's making money. It's doing
yeah,
okay. Okay.
yeah.
And you say, "Hey, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to start my own business too. I have no idea how it's going to do, and I don't have any clients lined up. But let's move to Colorado."
Well, we had been talking about, you know,
Uh,
what are we going to do about school and should we stay here? We were living in near downtown Austin,
okay.
right by the river, and it was a great place to be when you're hip and young.
I know,
And
right?
then
Yep.
once you
Yep.
have kids, you're like, I don't know if we really want to be here. You
Hmm.
know,
I know, right? I know, right where you're talking about too. Yep.
we
Totally.
had like bicycles stolen off the porch and homeless people peeing on the house and stuff like that. Like when you're young, you're like, whatever. It's
Yep.
just the flavor of the city. And when you've got kids, you're like, I don't know, man. Maybe this isn't so cool.
Right.
So, so we had been kind of looking. We were both open to a change. And
Okay.
what happened that the source of funding was that about maybe 6 months before we ended up pulling the trigger, she put out the word that she was going to sell her company,
Okay.
or that it was for sale if somebody wanted to buy it. And we didn't go through brokers or any of that stuff. It was just word of mouth.
Mm.
And it was a recession. And we
Mhm.
found somebody that said, sure, I'd like to buy it. They had a baby carrier company already
I see.
and wanted to take advantage of the, I guess, higher end and higher profile
Ah.
baby carriers that Darien had come up with.
So that was the seed money for the move and to start your business in
Exactly.
Colorado.
That was our money to go live off and know that we won't have any income for a little bit, but it's okay because we've got a little bit of a pad.
Well, but that's still a little bit scary, and I think that's important for the listeners right there. I mean, you took
It was.
that's still a major risk. I mean, it wasn't like that money could just last forever, right? I mean,
Nope.
you had to you living off that cash to pay the mortgage. You had to pay for the move. And and by the way, once you sold the company, there's no more future revenue coming in. It's just a pot of money that will eventually fade. And so you still had to get your new company going sooner or later, or you'd have to get a regular job, right? So
Yes.
so how long did it take you to get Volare open or going to where you really felt comfortable? I mean, to where it's now, okay, now we don't need any other source of savings to live off of. I got it going. Was that a year? Was it 2 years? How long did it take you to really get it to where you felt comfortable?
Yeah. So there were a few kind of sketchy clients at first, but what I did was subcontracting to other consulting companies.
Okay.
And once I was doing that, I knew this is going to work. That's enough to live off.
Okay.
Money's coming in.
Gotcha.
But yeah, for the listeners that are like, well, this sounds like too easy. I could just do this.
Yeah.
There were low spots. There were some like that. So I found on Craigslist, I was scrolling through looking for like anybody that's got any kind of software development work or whatever. I found somebody that they had an apartment near Coors Field, and they just needed they. Once I talked to the guy on the phone, he said, I've got a software developer that worked on this, but I just fired him. I'm pissed off at him, and I need to get into the system and pass the passwords and all that stuff and get it up and running. So I said, I think I can help you. I'm not really sure, but let's give it a shot.
Okay.
If I can't help you, I won't charge you. I
And,
show
and,
up.
and back then, by the way, if I can just pause, are you asking for
Yeah.
any money? Are you asking for any money up front right then at this time? Or are you just taking some?
Not up front. No, I think I was asking for $100 or something to do it, just because
Okay.
I knew this was a small deal,
Okay.
but I didn't have anything going on. It was the summer of 2009, and I was like, what the hell? Why not go see if we can fix this guy's problem and get that first dollar coming in.
Okay.
It was so sketchy. So I go to this guy's apartment, and all he can talk about, he's just enraged about the last developer that he worked with.
Okay.
And all I'm thinking is like, so do you have my address? like, do you know where I live?
Yeah, right.
He's it was 10 a.m. He asked me if I want a drink, and he's drinking like whiskey.
At 10 a.m.
And he's wearing a bathrobe. It's like everything, like it's like a movie. He's got a bathrobe, drinking whiskey, and he says, "Here, come sit over here." And all he has for furniture in this apartment is a bench press. So I'm sitting on the bench press to get onto his computer to get into whatever, to set up his web server that he's logged out of or something. And the whole time I'm just like, I just really want to leave.
Right.
So, it's sometimes you get a little more, maybe adventure than you want.
But you do what you have to do when you're starting out a business. You take on clients that might be a little scary or that you're nervous about. You do what you have to do, right?
It's a beggars can't be choosers deal. And you're just like, well, if this guy will pay me, then whatever.
Was there ever a moment over the last 10, 11 years now you've had it, were there times where you and your wife were like, okay, well, there's 3 months worth of cash flow in the bank, and if I don't get another client, and we're going to be out of money in 90 days. Did you hit any of those spots in there anywhere?
It does come up now and then. And so for people starting out, everybody always thinks about profits on business, but especially with a small business, cash flow
it's king.
Can be that's one of the biggest things, like if you've got other expenses coming in, like those expenses are definitely coming. And if the cash isn't, you're like, what are we going to do? So, there have been times that either through kind of dry spells on customers or customers where we've had collection problems, we've, kind of played it out like, so in 3 months we either have to shut down or sue somebody to get money or just go apply for a regular job.
And that, just touching on that right there, I think that's probably the cash flow stress of a small business like yours, is probably what keeps most people up at night, because you're pretty confident in yourself. You know that you'll do a good job if you get the business, but what if the client runs out of cash? What if the client lost a customer and they can't pay you? What if it takes you, what if you lose 2 clients in a row, 2 clients, back to back, and all of a sudden you're scrambling to get new clients, and that takes 90 days. And so you're always, to a certain degree, you're looking at the bank, you're looking at the cash flow, and you're always, at least in my head, even with Riderflex today, I'm always I get the monthly financials, but I'm just like you. Like, I don't know. Okay, whatever. I just want to know what's the cash flow and how much cash is left until we get a new client. And so you're always walking around kind of doing the math in your head, at least for me and for a lot of small business owners. You're always going, okay, if we don't land another client, when do we run out of cash? And so that's how fast you got to know, you're trying to bring on another client. It's a stressful thing. And I think it takes guts to live with that and to go to sleep with that. Every night, people like you and me and other small business owners, we lay our head down at the pillow knowing that if we don't generate business, if we don't make it happen, the cash will stop unless we're up at 4:30 a.m. and kicking ass and getting after it. Because it's not like being an employee where you just know your check's going to hit.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And so what we've done to figure it out is we've got some complicated spreadsheets with some numbers that are kind of like if we fall below this line,
Ah,
and we've got it plotted out for, the next 12 months.
good.
If we fall below this line, it's time to get scared.
Time to
And
get
if we
scared.
fall below this other line,
Yeah.
it's
It's time to look
to
for a
shut it
job.
down. Yeah. Or to, like, if you, at least if you have kind of some risk mitigation sort of plans of like, well, if we get to this, then I would do that. If we get to that, then if
Yeah.
it gets worse than that, I would guess I would do this other thing. That's how I sleep at night, kind of knowing like,
Yeah.
well, I've kind of game played it out a little bit. And
Now the trick with playing that out in your head, though, I think as you get older and you get to be in your early 50s and mid 50s and late 50s, the ability to shut the business down and just quote go get a job becomes slimmer.
yeah, and there's ageism in software development too that
Hmm.
um, have hoped. I just turned 50 a couple months ago, and I've hoped that um, people that came up kind of the same generation as I would be also doing software development, and like, well,
Hmm.
this is just what software developers look like. We're not all in our 20s now. That's true to some extent, but yeah, I think if I just started applying for jobs, they'd be like, I don't know if I want the old guy.
Right. Oh, no doubt about it. It absolutely happens. I mean, there are some people that like to sit around and pretend like that's not an issue, but it
Right.
is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, you've had the business now for 11 years. I mean, that first of
Yeah.
all, the stats. You look at all these reports online, like to make it past the first year, it's this percentage. To make it past 3 years, to make it past 5 years. You've had it for 11 years. I mean, congratulations.
Thank
You've
you.
made, you've raised your family. You made the move. You've had the business for 11 years. That's a huge success story. Why don't you take a few minutes to talk about your business and tell the listeners what you do, what you specialize in, and how they can contact you guys if they need you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we do software development, custom software development. People usually, the next question is, well, what kind? And every kind is the answer.
Okay.
We built a curriculum management system for the second largest school district in Colorado.
Ah,
We built the fleet management software for the second largest commercial fleet in the US. And we just signed a contract with the Air Force just a little while ago.
oh,
So it's not all,
congratulations.
oh, thank you. Sometimes it's these really gigantic organizations, and other times it's really small businesses that have 10 or 20 people, and they're a startup and they need help with their web or mobile application. So
Okay.
that's the kind of stuff we do. Um,
If we had, so an example, let's say Riderflex, my recruiting firm,
mhm.
if we used an applicant tracking system, an off-the-shelf applicant tracking system, but we wanted it modified in a bunch of ways, would we call you? Is that an example or no?
We do some kind of integrations like that. If you said, well, I want every time I hit submit or somebody applies for a job, I want it to go over here and over there also. Well, we
Okay.
can kind of help with those kind of off-the-shelf software integrations, but most of the time it's the full custom
Okay.
built from scratch software.
If Riderflex wanted a mobile app for all of our candidates to be able to access us through a mobile app and apply and do a video of themselves and all that, and we wanted it to be
Sure.
custom built, we'd call you.
Yeah, that would be the kind of thing that more like the kind of thing we do.
Okay.
We get calls probably a couple a day at this point from people saying, I've got an idea for an app.
Ah,
And
ah,
the good thing about it is that there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of kind of entrepreneurial spirit out there and a lot of fresh ideas. The thing that might be helpful for your listeners that also have an idea for an app is just make sure you think through the full business piece of it.
mhm.
Because most of the time, well, just people are at different stages, I should say, in their thinking. And most of the people that contact us are, I have an idea. And they haven't thought through, how are you going to market this? How will
Right.
you promote this? Will this be in the app store? You can do this kind of evenings and weekends up to a point, and then if it's successful enough, you're going to need to quit your job. How would you make money on this? How would you charge people?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
Just managing the risk. How would you get money? Just all the businessy stuff. A lot of times they haven't really gone through that. Sometimes they have,
Yep.
but a lot of times they're like, no, I just thought this is a problem. It annoys me. Somebody should make an app. And so here's my idea.
Yeah. Well, the problem is there's a million apps, and the average user, what is it? I read this the other day. The average smartphone user only plays around with up to 10 or 12. There's only so many apps they want to deal with before they just like, okay, I can't, it's too many.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what we often tell people that are in those early stages, sometimes people are done, they've thought through all that, and they're like, I know, I'm ready to build an app. Are you the vendor that we're going to go with to do the coding?
Mm-hmm.
And they're really kind of shopping for someone to go implement it. But when someone's in those early stages, what we'll often recommend is go build a web version of this.
Oh, good.
And do the tiniest thing that you can to either prove what you've got, so you can go to like a trade show and sit at a table, and as people walk by, you go, haven't you ever had the such and such problem? Well, look, our little doohickey that we've come up with takes that problem away. And it's rough, but you're going to really love phase 2 that's coming out, this spring.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can start taking in sales, getting interest, promoting it.
Gotcha.
There's also so much information out there about how to promote things on the web.
There is. I totally.
It's a known thing. So like,
I've interviewed several guests for this podcast that started their business by simply going into social media and gaining interest, and they hadn't even made the product yet. They acted like they had made the product, and then people, once they got enough followers and people said, hey, I want one, then they actually said, oh shit, I guess I better figure out how to make this.
Well, it's not a bad way to go, because if you follow some of the lean thinking stuff, that's all about your product or service that you're offering is really like a hypothesis for, can I build a business doing this, building this product or selling this service? And until people are ready to part with their money or show high levels of interest, you haven't proven the hypothesis yet.
Right.
So
totally agree.
Come up with the smallest thing that you can possibly get in front of somebody, or even just, it can be like popsicle sticks and whatever, just something that you cobble together and say like, this is my thought, and it's not even a prototype yet, but here's what I'm thinking. Because you can find out, people will tell you like,
oh yeah,
I would never pay for that. I'd pay $100 for that. I would pay $10,000 for that.
And by the way, hopefully there's people telling you they'll pay for that aren't your friends or family.
Exactly. You got to get, people that aren't going to just say something nice to spare your feelings. You got to hear the straight truth from strangers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there a reason why you haven't? Because I noticed you don't have a lot of employees or anything like that. I think it's yourself and your wife, and maybe, I don't know, you use a couple of outsourced developers at some point, but is there any reason why, have you purposely not scaled up the business and you wanted to keep it small? I'm just curious.
So it is purposeful, and here's what happened. So that consulting company in Austin, I was the vice president of it. The guy that was the president and main owner, he was a friend, and we went from less than 10 to at the high point we had about 52 people working for us.
Okay.
So it goes from, we need a table at the back of the Mexican food place for our annual Christmas dinner kind of thing, to, I guess we're going to rent the room out, to, I guess we need a ballroom at the hotel. Because we kind of scared, because people and their families and their kids and all that.
Yep.
And so we have our thing, we're in a hotel ballroom, and he stands up to give this presentation. It was a good year, thanks so much, looking forward to working with you next year, kind of deal. But he kind of has a little freak out that he stands up, and all these people that he doesn't know are looking at him, And he's like, I'm like the provider
Oh
for
yeah.
all
No,
these
no,
families.
yes,
And look at these
absolutely.
children.
Yes,
And he's like,
yes.
oh my God, the pressure.
Yep.
He's like, I'm just a guy who's a software developer who got some projects that needed more people.
Uh,
And so I brought in more people, and that just kept going and kept going. That's how he built it. It wasn't really, there were no business plans or
yeah,
mission statements or any
yeah,
of that.
yeah.
So he's kind of has this little freak out, and he was telling me about it, and it just really stuck with me that he just kind of got accidentally up to a scale that he was like, holy cow,
This is
this
added
is
stress.
like,
This is added stress.
yeah. Well, and he was doing all the sales. That was really the problem.
Mm,
Was he was like, if I don't get new customers,
how do I? Right.
all these people do the work, but I'm the one person to go get new customers. Um, so when we moved here again in 2009, it was a recession, and so I finally got a project. I think it was about 6 months, maybe a year into it, and I think about 6 months, and I was ready to hire people. I was calling around, interviewing,
Okay.
candidates, and getting serious about a couple of them, but they all bailed at the end.
Mm,
Like as it got down to like, okay, so are you ready to do this? And they're like,
mm,
actually, I'm gonna stay with my current job,
mm.
or I found another job.
Okay.
And I kept getting no's, and I was like, what is going on? In Austin, I just had no trouble getting people. And it was two things. One is there was a recession. So a lot of
Yep.
people that might otherwise look at the job were like, I'm just happy to have a job at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to
Yeah.
keep my head down, keep
hmm
knocking it out
hmm hmm
at this job. And then other people that were looking, if it's just a hard sell. Like, hey, I just moved here. We've only been in business 6 months. There are only 2 employees. Come work with us. Leave your job. Leave your benefits. I think we're going to have health insurance. We're trying to figure that out. We don't have retirement
yeah.
stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah. That's
if
tough.
you stick
That's tough.
around,
Yep.
if we get enough people, we'll do retirement stuff too. Everybody's like, man, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Do you not know if there's a recession? I don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to work for this
Your only
shitty
your
thing.
only your only real selling point there is equity. Maybe you can say, "Hey, I'll give you some equity, and you could work from home or whatever." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what it flipped around to. Is I was trying to find people in the Denver area during recession, and I was struggling. So I widened the net to find people that would be remote employees
Okay. Okay.
from all over the U.S. And then accidentally found that that's actually for us a better model. That I
hmm
can keep it smaller,
Gotcha.
and what I have found is I can find or hire better quality software developers
Yep. Yep.
because they're like me. They've been around the block a little bit. They're like, driving in for a 45-minute
No,
commute. What's the point?
I don't understand it.
That's an hour and a half a day that I could either be working or with my family or whatever, making
That's a
dinner, doing,
that's a
walking
whole
the dog.
that's a whole nother podcast episode we could do. I'm super passionate about that. I believe at some point in society we're going to have all these giant office buildings that I don't know what they're going to do with because a lot of people are going to work from home. We could,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway.
Well, I like it. It's worked out for us. I think we get a little more loyalty with the people that work with
Yeah,
us.
no doubt about it.
That
Yep, we're the
they're
same.
happy, like they're
Yep,
making good money. They're working from home. They get to set their schedule. They
yep,
can, work from a coffee shop or a beach, anything with an internet connection. At
yep.
least with software development,
And we're the
that
same.
pretty well works out.
We're the same. Our Riderflex, our recruiting team, yeah, no office, everybody's virtual. And you're right, they love it. They love the freedom of it. So and it helps us retain great people. So,
Sure.
okay, so for the listeners to get a hold of you, they want some custom software development or a mobile app. VolareSystems.com.
Yeah, that's probably the best place to read up more about exactly what we do, um, hear what people that have worked with us think about working with us,
Mm-hmm.
see some examples of our work is the website. And then you can always call at 303-532-5838.
Okay.
And if it's working hours, I'll answer.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. I got two more questions for you as we wrap up here. Two more short questions. Since you're from Texas, and I lived in Austin, by the way, I forgot to mention that. I lived there for 5 or 6 years. Do you know how to two-step?
I do, yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. So that's where I met my wife. West of Austin, in Marble Falls, and actually slightly west of Marble Falls, if you know that area. There was a little town called Kingsland, which is west of Marble Falls, where there was a honky tonk out there back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I was out there one night with my cowboy hat. Now I had taken two-step and swing lessons because I was single, and I had taken a bunch of lessons so that I could pick up chicks faster. And I'm out at the honky tonk, and that's where I saw my wife. I saw her dancing. I was like, I think I want to dance with her, and that's where I met her, right outside of Austin. I thought since you're an Austin guy, I thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, listen, Joe, thanks so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Great. Congratulations on your business.
Thank you.
If you had to define your core purpose in life right now, by the way, before you hang up, in a sentence, what Joe Wilson's core purpose now at this stage, at this age, how would you define your core purpose?
Yeah, I guess for the business, the core purpose, we usually say to delight our customers, and just do good work.
How about for you? How about for you personally?
What is my core purpose personally?
So just so you know, I was 50 years old when I was asked that question. I couldn't hardly answer it either.
Well, yeah, there must be something. I assume it's a little trite or whatever, but it really is just I spend a lot of time with my family. I enjoy being able to work from home, to have more access to them, and be able to go to the school plays and just all that kind of stuff. So I would say that's probably it.
People, that's another tip for the listeners. If you own your own business, and especially if you work from home, it really allows you to be involved in your family's life 100 times more than what you probably could be. Whether it's okay, Johnny's got a softball game at 3 p.m. today, and I'm going to actually make that, or whatever that is.
Sure.
Those are huge things. So, all right, my friend, Joe, glad to know you.
Likewise. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You bet, buddy. Take care.
All right. See ya.
The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.